Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Andrea Bales and today's presentation is how to reduce inflammation with diet. Just a little bit of background to me before we begin. I am a registered nutritional therapist and I have been working with clients now for nearly 20 years supporting their health issues. I mostly specialise in autoimmune disease and weight management, so metabolic health. And inflammation, unfortunately, is often at the root of all of these problems. And in actual fact, inflammation is at the root of practically all health conditions. So I think it's actually a really useful thing to understand. And so we're going to dig a bit deep today and have a look at what inflammation is. So one thing to understand about inflammation is that it is really an important part of our immune response. It's the body's way of healing itself after an injury, repairing damaged tissues, defending itself against pathogens and bacteria and viruses. And so in this way, inflammation is beneficial. And we all kind of understand the way that inflammation presents itself. So the 5 signs of inflammation are sort of redness, pain, swelling, heat, and in some cases immobility. So if you take a fracture as an example, when you break a bone, then you will get pain for sure. You will definitely get immobility, and you'll potentially get some swelling as well. And those mechanisms are there to protect you, to prevent you from moving that bone, that area, any further and doing further damage to that particular bone and area of the body. So in that case, inflammation, it can really help to protect you. But we do have chronic inflammation, and that's really what I'm going to be focusing on today. So we've just discussed acute inflammation. That's the fractured bone example. But chronic inflammation is what I call systemic. It's kind of low-grade inflammation. It's kind of that niggly thing that kind of, niggles away in the background. And in many cases, it is the most common cause of health issues. It's actually been linked to all the major conditions and diseases, particularly things like cancers and diabetes and heart disease. So what we know about chronic inflammation and this ongoing stimulus, if there's an ongoing problem, is that what we then do is produce far too many free radicals. And free radicals, all you need to know about those are that free radicals are molecules that actually damage your tissues. And we're going to look at those in more detail later. So how does inflammation affect the body? So research shows that an unresolved inflammatory response is likely to be involved from the very early stages of disease development. Inflammation is linked to, I've just said, most of the major chronic health conditions and degenerative diseases. So let's take a look at the next slide, because this really kind of gives us a bit more detail about how chronic inflammation can damage your body. So if you think about brain and the memory loss and cognitive decline that we tend to experience as we age, well, basically what is happening there is that the cells of the neurological system, those neurons, are actually inflamed. They're getting, you're getting an inflammatory condition of the brain. Now we know that things like Alzheimer's and dementia are chronic inflammatory conditions. So these things like memory loss and cognitive decline are actually the early warning signs of chronic inflammation of the brain. So things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol are ways that those can develop into increased cardiovascular risks, and and in the worst case scenario, a heart attack. We have abnormal growth of healthy cells, which in a word is cancer. It's where tumours start to grow. But again, these are where these abnormal cells are inflamed cells. A compromised digestive function is, so if you are someone who struggles with IBS or an inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's or colitis, they're both inflammatory conditions. Everything in the gut that presents itself in that way, and even things like acid reflux, are inflammatory conditions, which will then go on to become, much worse problems. A loss of muscle tone and weight gain, being overweight, being obese, is chronic inflammation, and that we know that can damage the body in the long term. Chronic inflammation can cause accelerated skin aging, and also joint pain and loss of mobility. So think of things like an arthritis or a rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, I haven't actually put on here autoimmune conditions and metabolic conditions. So there are many ways in which chronic inflammation can damage your body. So I think what we need to look at is maybe what causes inflammation. I mean, chronic inflammation has always been with us, but sadly, there is now an overwhelming evidence that because our diet has degenerated, particularly over the 20th and 21st centuries, we have become more prone to chronic inflammation. And as a result, those degenerative diseases have become more commonplace. So much so that people now accept that chronic disease is normal because they are so common. So if you think about, I think I looked at the figures recently, and 67% of the UK population have some form of chronic health condition. And I think that's quite a scary statistic, to be honest with you. But not just one thing causes inflammation. We have to think about, an inflammatory diet. We have to think about blood sugar imbalances and insulin regulation. We have to think about gut health and the microbiome that lives inside our gut. All of these things can influence inflammation. The food you eat can be either the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. I think that's quite a poignant slide for giving us some food for thought. So these are my 5 key areas that cause inflammation that we need to be thinking about. Okay, so number 1 on my list is this imbalance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail because it's probably the most important thing to bear in mind when we're talking about inflammation. Not enough fruit and vegetables. Well, to be honest with you, 5 a day is old hat, and we should be aiming for 10 fruit and vegetables a day, ideally, to get the most optimum nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the phytonutrients, all of those things that we need to make our bodies work better. We use inflammatory cooking methods, fried foods, and this is, true of many takeaway type foods, high temperature cooking, smoked foods. All of these things cause inflammation within the system. Being overweight or obese, we know causes inflammation. So that has a knock-on effect on many other aspects of metabolic health. And being exposed to excessive free radicals. So if you are a smoker, if you eat lots of sugar daily, if you add sugar to your drinks, if you're drinking sodas, if you're adding, sweeteners, aspartame and things like that to drinks and things. And obviously our exposure to chemicals and the environment that you either work in, perhaps, or that we as a nation are exposed to in terms of pollutants and pesticides and things like that. So that all influences our inflammatory responses. So this is, I want to take you back to your biology school days now, if I may, and I want to look at the cellular structure because this is so important. We've got every part of our body is made up of cells. So we have brain cells, we have joint cells, we have heart cells, we have cells everywhere. We are made up of cells, and every single cell has a cell membrane, a wall around the cell. And that cell membrane is made up of omega-3 fats, omega-6 fats, and proteins. And today I just want to go into that omega-3 and omega-6 because when the cell wall has too much omega-6 fat, then it becomes hard, rigid, inflamed. And basically what that means is that the cell wall will struggle to get any nutrients into its cellular structure. At the same time, those nutrients that are processed within the cell have to produce waste, which we cannot get those waste products out effectively or efficiently because this cell wall is damaged, hard and rigid. Which then means that as you go on and on and on, you're getting more and more damaged cells because you're not getting nutrients in and you're not getting wastes out. And in the worst case scenario, these damaged cells become cancerous. They become, arthritis. They become gout. They become, metabolic conditions. So, they become, inflamed to the stage where you have developed a degenerative disease. So in order for us to get a much healthier cell wall, we have to get the balance of omega-6 and omega-3 right. Now, remember at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about the importance of having some inflammation to protect us from damage, from further damage when we sustain an injury. That is the role of omega-6, but we only need a ratio of 3:1 in that cell membrane in order for us to have a proper function, normal function. Now, in the majority of cases, most of us now are eating and consuming way more omega-6 in our diets because it's in our processed foods, it's in our packaged foods, it's in our ultra processed foods. It's used in farmed foods. It's used as a cheap oil because the omega-6 comes from vegetable oils like corn, canola, soy oil, sunflower oil. And those oils are very cheap to feed our animals. They're very cheap to use in food production methods. So what we are seeing nowadays is that we have a massively higher level of omega-6. So we can measure that. We can measure those ratios. And I actually carry out tests to do that. Zinzino are a company that I am affiliated with, but we can actually look at your cellular health through a very simple pinprick test that tells you how inflamed your cells are, how protected you are from chronic inflammation. So it's a very useful test to consider. So cellular inflammation then, let's have a look at what might make those cells much more inflamed. First off on the list is sugar and refined carbohydrates. So that's, the refined carbs are your pastries, your cakes, your biscuits, all the nice things. And unfortunately, anything made from white flour is refined. Gluten is actually, from breads and pastas and things like that. Gluten can actually cause more inflammation, especially when you are in a state of inflammation already. Conventionally raised meat and dairy. So, like I was saying, these farmed animals and farmed dairy cows are being fed very cheap omega-6 based foods, so often they are that's passed on in the food chain. Farm-raised fish and processed meats, anything with trans fats or hydrogenated fats in, highly processed vegetable and seed oils, as like I've just mentioned, the canola, the corn, the sunflower. Those particular oils are incredibly high in omega-6, which can be pro-inflammatory. And things like MSG and food additives and preservatives and artificial sweeteners. So those are the things that we really need to consider getting out of our diet. We need to strip ourselves back to a healthier, more natural diet. And let's have a look at how we can give you some solutions to reduce this inflammation and potential inflammatory conditions from developing. Because we can do that. We can reverse inflammation. That's my job. I sit here day in, day out, supporting clients who have these inflammatory conditions, and we reverse those inflammatory conditions. So it's certainly doable, and it certainly helps you to have a longer, healthier life, rather than thinking, oh, well, it's just because I'm getting old or it's because I'm aging. That is something that is untrue. I want to stop people from going back to thinking that getting these inflammatory conditions is normal, because it really, really isn't. So I'm going to take a look now at these 5 different aspects of helping you to reduce inflammation. One of those is hydration. Now, that really doesn't need a lot for me to say. Basically, you need to stay hydrated. Your cells need hydration in order for them to flush out those toxins. And it's so important for optimizing your function. It will help to provide you with energy as well. So 2 litres a day is my recommendation. But if you're somebody who drinks no water, then build up gradually. Otherwise, you'll be on the loo all the time. Now, stress and sleep are absolutely essential. Let's start with sleep first of all, because sleep is when you repair your cells overnight. So if there is some form of low-grade inflammation going on, poor sleep or lack of sleep, disturbed sleep patterns will actually contribute to increasing your levels of inflammation. So making sure that you're getting adequate levels of sleep, and the recommendations are for 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and actually undisturbed sleep, so that you're getting good quality REM and deep sleep when your body can do all its overnight repair work. And stress management, very, very important to take time out, to do relaxation therapy, mindfulness, and, if that for you might be a walk in nature, it may be a meditation, it may be some form of yoga or exercise class, gentle exercise class. So whatever it might be for you, it's important to incorporate it into your life, especially if you are a busy person, whether that's with family or caring for children, caring for the elderly, or you're a busy professional at work. Stress management really should become part of your routine each week, at least, to support a lack of inflammation. So movement and exercise. Now, we all know that these bodies were built to move. We were given legs and arms, and that's what they're designed to do. So regular exercise is essential, and that will help to keep inflammation under control. Again, this is down to you as an individual. It's about what you enjoy doing. Movement doesn't have to be vigorous and, running a marathon. It can be a 20-minute daily walk. It can be a swim, it can be a Pilates class, whatever it is that helps you to just move, especially if you're someone who is relatively stationary throughout your day. So on to the anti-inflammatory diet then. So an anti-inflammatory healing diet will lower inflammatory markers in the blood. I've seen that. And it will restore cellular health and reduce the severity of pain and health conditions. So I recommend using the Mediterranean diet because this contains essential foods that are anti-inflammatory. So thinking about the Mediterranean diet, and I'm not talking about baguettes, pain au chocolat, or croissants. We need to be thinking about healthy foods like the oily fish. We need to think about things like olives and olive oils, avocados, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, whole grains like brown rice and oats and quinoa, and then pulses like the beans, the peas, the chickpeas, lentils, and lots of green vegetables. Those green vegetables are absolutely essential for reducing inflammation. So what we want to be doing, if you think about the Mediterranean diet, is we need to be eating the rainbow. So every single colour food contains different nutrients. So, you know, for example, your red foods will contain lots of high levels of vitamin C. Your orange and yellow foods like carrots and squash and pumpkin, they contain your beta carotenes, your vitamin A's, essential for eye health and so on and so forth. So all the foods that we eat within that rainbow will have a different action in the body. I'm just going to digress slightly here, but I think if you think about food as being information, that is where our bodies get their information to do the function and the activities that we ask it to do. There is no other way that your body will work without food and obviously hydration. So think about food as being the thing that delivers all those essential actions and functions that we need to do on a daily basis. Then you can see why we need this rainbow of different nutrients, because each nutrient has a different action. So I've just put a few of the anti-inflammatory foods here that are sort of top of the list, if you like. And, you know, all of the berries in the rainbow of fruits and vegetables are really high anti-inflammatory foods. Your blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, cherries, and blackcurrants. And the theme through that is that blue, that purple, because they contain some really powerful antioxidants, which are really, really good at reducing inflammation. So, you know, those are very easy to include every day. And I always throw some berries onto my breakfast in the morning. That makes me, you know, make sure that I have my berries, my antioxidants. Vegetables. This is just a selection, obviously, because the more vegetables you can include from your rainbow, the better. But, you know, things like broccoli and cabbage are very, very high antioxidants. Asparagus is a really good antioxidant. It's very cleansing, really good for kidney health. Beetroot, again, the rich redness of the beetroot is very detoxifying, high antioxidant, high anti-inflammatory. And then things like chard and mushrooms. Mushrooms are very, very antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. So they have lots of great anti-inflammatory properties. So those are just a few of the foods that you can really do some really good work with if inflammation is part of your picture. So I'm going to just go now into some very key anti-inflammatory nutrients. So those were anti-inflammatory foods. This is going to be a little bit more targeted. Now, I know I've already mentioned omega-3, and it was important because omega-3 is our natural anti-inflammatory. So generally speaking, our go-to anti-inflammatory when we've got a pain or an inflammatory condition is a painkiller like ibuprofen or paracetamol or, stronger drugs. But in actual fact, if we take omega-3 in the form of food or supplement, then we're actually putting in more powerful anti-inflammatories than any painkiller, because this is getting into that cellular membrane. So, we want to be eating fish that are high in omega-3. Things like wild salmon, not farmed. Farmed salmon are very, very omega-6 rich because, again, they are fed the cheaper omega-6 oils. So things like wild salmon, mackerel, herring, tuna, sardines, pilchards, oysters, crabs, prawns, shrimps, all of those fish are rich in omega-3. And there are lots of vegetables that are rich in omega-3 as well, like avocados and the nuts, particularly not walnuts, almonds and hazelnuts, macadamias as well. But really, really, in today's society, to overcome and combat this plethora of omega-6 that's in our foods, we need to be supplementing. We need to be supplementing with a high quality omega-3 fish oil, and for vegans, you need to be supplementing with an algal oil made from algae. Zinzino make one of the best omega-3 oils I have come across in my industry, and believe you me, there are plenty to choose from. And the reason for that is that they have added olives to their fish oil, which provides that antioxidant protection. So that means that the oil isn't oxidizing and going rancid. And it means that it has an amazing level of activity within the bloodstream, within the digestive system, of up to 37 hours. So it's really effective at cellular level. If anybody would like to know more about that, then you can contact me. So, another really great anti-inflammatory nutrient is ginger. Now, ginger's got a long tradition of being really effective in helping symptoms of, stomach upset, nausea, wind, gas, indigestion, heartburn. But it's really, really high in antioxidants, one of the highest foods that we can actually get. And there was a study that was carried out on patients with rheumatoid arthritis where they ate 50 grams a day of lightly cooked ginger root, and all of them experienced substantial improvements in their joint pain, in their joint mobility, and in reducing their inflammation. So including ginger in your daily or in your diet is really, really healthy and anti-inflammatory too. Now, turmeric has been, again, this is one of the most researched herbs or spices, I think, in the world, in actual fact. If you sort of search turmeric anti-inflammatory in Google Scholar, you will find paper after paper after paper. And that's because it's loaded with antioxidants called curcuminoids. And these are really powerful at reducing inflammation. So they also help to improve your detoxification, and they are documented as reducing cancer cell formation in the body as well. So adding turmeric powder into your daily foods or using it in cooking is really great. You can, of course, take turmeric as an additional supplement if you really want to. But the way that I use it is that I make a turmeric drink. So I use coconut milk, some turmeric powder, and some maple syrup, and I just make that into a little milky drink and drink that down, once or twice a week. And obviously, turmeric's better absorbed when you have the good healthy fats that come from things like plant milks and oily fish, and a pinch of black pepper in there as well, because that helps the absorption. So that's turmeric. And then my other recommendation is apple cider vinegar. And this is a fermented tonic loaded with enzymes and organic acids. And it's a really good natural sterilizing agent that helps to improve your digestive function. So it also helps to stabilize blood sugars. So anybody looking to control cravings, take apple cider vinegar before you eat your meals. And it also helps to improve skin tone, and of course is anti-inflammatory. So I use apple cider vinegar like lemon juice. So you can add a little bit of it to your water to make it taste a little bit sharp. But also, I recommend it to my clients as a spoonful before eating a main meal, because it's really great at producing a bit more stomach acid to promote digestion of proteins and fats. So that's another one to include. Now, the Zinzino Health Protocol is something that I recommend we all need, basically, because we have reached a point in our society where chronic health has become the norm. And if we were to put in more omega-3s from a fish oil or a vegan oil, if we were to support our gut health using a prebiotic powder that feeds the healthy bacteria, and then we put all the antioxidants in from a multivitamin and mineral supplement, we're covering our backs. We're giving our bodies the best opportunity to prevent chronic inflammation from developing. So I'm more than happy to offer any of you listening today a free call just to have a look at the Zinzino Health Protocol to find out more information. There are leaflets available with more information about the products, but please get in touch with me if you've got any questions about anything to do with this presentation today. My contact details are there. Email is the best way to get in touch with me. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions or queries you might have around today's presentation, or any other health problems if you would like to sort of have a chat with me to see if there's anything I can do to help you. So I'd like to say I do hope that was useful and informative, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for listening today. So do take care. Thank you.